Welcome. This is the Drupal usability meeting for August 2nd, 2024. I'm Benji Fisher, moderating, and also here are Ralph Kohler, who's sharing his screen, and Thomas Howell. Go ahead, Ralph.
Thanks, Benji. We're looking at issue number 32730099. A image style page has two unnecessary link tags as well as a hidden focus. That's a rather old issue from 2 years ago. It is mainly about as the title says, the element focus. And it has to be noted that the hidden focus is already fixed in another issue. But I've one page just to illustrate the problem and
link, skip to main content, voiceover off.
To illustrate the content, the issue itself in the initial stage, it was basically if you tap through, you can see here the bottom of the focus outline is hidden underneath the image. And if you tap one more, you can see it's the lower fourth quarter of that image. And instead of wrapping the entire image with a focus outline, and that was basically the initial problem. But while fixing it locally, I've noticed one detail.
Voiceover on Safari, edit style large, 480 times 480, vertical line brush site install, window, visited, link, image, visited, link, add to default shortcuts, banner, visited, link, view actual size, main, visited, link, image, sample original image, link, view actual size, link, image, sample modified image, voiceover off.
You were able to hear the announcements?
Yes.
Yeah, and as you were able to hear, the view actual size is redundant. You have no context where that link is heading to for one, and for those diagrams or preview decorational images, let's put it that way, the most important detail is actually those dimensions, the 800 pixels by 600 pixels and the 480 pixels by 360 pixels. And that is not apparent at all with a screen reader and not available. You would have to go stepwise with a visual voice cursor with a cursor through and announce every detail. If you are here.
Voiceover on Safari, edit style large, 480, link, add to default shortcuts, preview, original, visited, link, view actual size, right parenthesis, visited, link, image, sample original image, 600px, 800px, large, 480 times, voiceover off.
But yeah, that would be unexpected. And a screen reader user wouldn't necessarily take that measure and expect that there are that kind of informations here. And I just switch over to the other page. With the updated suggestion,
link, skip main content.
Wanted some.
You are currently on a link inside of web content. To click this link, press Control. Visited, link, bold 14-point system font. Visited, link, visited, link, image, visited, link, view actual original preview size. Visited, link, image, original preview, 800 pixels wide, 600 pixels high. Link, view actual resized preview size. Link, image, resized preview, 480 pixels wide, 360 pixels high. Voiceover off.
And as you can see, on the other hand, the focus outline, there's a small margin of 0.5 m added between the text and the image. That way, the bottom of the focus outline isn't hidden anymore, and the focus is now around the entire image. Yeah, that's basically the outline, the situation. Any questions to this point?
Nope.
Yeah, so I see that you're fixing two problems for accessibility. One, that the dimensions are hard to find, and now those are attached to the image. And you've added some text when you visit the link. So ideally, we would have the same text for visual display that we have for the voiceover. So I wonder if it might be better to just change the link that's visually shown and then automatically let that be what you see in the voiceover.
Yeah, that might be also an option. Yeah, I agree. Just have the
This may be the only usability meeting anywhere that routinely looks at code.
so
What
over
do you want to show
here
us here?
on the left, that is technically the alt text, the microcopy for the alt text. As you can see here, original preview, the width in pixels wide and height in pixels high. And underneath here is the alt text for the resized one. And the question is, should it be rephrased? Should the attribution be slightly different?
And what's the current alt text?
One second. I think there is, I think, an alt text. It was
And maybe
image.
instead of looking at the code, you could just open your browser tools to show the
Oh yeah, that way.
alt
Yeah.
text and context. And then you switch between
Yep.
windows.
Sample original image is the alt text.
I don't like that because sample is also a verb.
Yeah. But
and then the alt text on the resized one.
It is sample modified image, and modified in that regard is misleading and not telling exactly what it is about.
Okay. Oh, and I see that Offer has just joined us. So Ralph, is this the remaining question, usability question for this issue that you want us to think about this alt text, or is there more?
Yeah, the alt text and that text up here with the
Right.
original view actual size.
Okay, so let's start with the alt text. So sample original image and sample modified image are the current alt text.
Yeah.
Let's just say that's terrible.
Agreed.
And then what do you have in your current draft?
For the original, I have original preview, and then the width pixel wide and height pixels high. And I've avoided the abbreviation with PX in the context because 800 PX wide and 600 PX high. Yeah, it is clearer that way and easier announced.
Yeah, I don't want to find out how a screen reader treats PX. should we say original preview, or should we say preview original, using preview as a verb? Or should we just say original image and resized image?
One detail I think might be helpful, but I'm not sure, is it is not yet communicated in any way in my suggestion, as well as in the initial current state, that it is basically a decorational image, and it is always the same. And that way, with if you have preview, you might have the assumption as a screen reader user not being able to see any context, that this image is maybe what kind of image it is, and maybe it is sort of adjusted or updated on the different image styles, for example. That is my slight worry here. Or maybe it's too over careful and cautious. Not sure.
Yeah, I think for a few reasons, maybe we should worry about that. So one is that it's already confusing even for sighted users, that when I look at these two, they look exactly the same. And that's something you have to learn. So maybe we should consider that out of scope, and just try to focus on the issue at hand. And the other thing is, maybe for visually impaired user, there's the combination of the alt text and what we see is important. For a blind user, I just don't know how much information we can give them about the resized images. And so maybe we shouldn't try too hard.
Yeah, true. The most important information for the alt text for screen reader users is definitely the pixel value for the height and the width. That should be communicated there from my perspective. That is and the information that is, one is the original and the other is the resized.
Yeah, so let's focus on the alt text, and can you show us, instead of using your instead of doing that, you have the patch applied in a different tab, right? And Offer, Thomas, what do you think the alt text should be? Do you agree with me that sample original and sample whatever is terrible?
Yeah, I concur. I do think it's terrible. I actually initially thought that sample was the name of the image. And so I didn't, but it doesn't look like it's actually bringing in the name of the image at all. I think that's the only thing that I would have personally found confusing is like, I imagine that even as a sighted viewer, or user, if I saw like 5 or 100 different versions of these two balloons that we are looking at, it would be really helpful if I knew precisely which of the images. And the page doesn't give me a lot of context so you have to assume that you've clicked the correct stuff. And that's about it. And I don't know enough about the context of what we're looking at to make a good recommendation, but I think that getting the alt text right makes sense. And honestly, in the alt text, I would include information about what the actual image was that you're looking at. So when we say original and when we say modified or anything like that, it's like original and then the name of what it is we're looking at, but that may be too long for a screen reader. So that's the only real suggestion I have.
I think that the word I like the alt text. I think the word original is confusing unless the name of the style is original, which I don't think it is.
How do we refer to it? It's either the original or
Source?
what's that?
Source sounds
Source?
more like what we would call images. But I think original is just or raw image. I think that's what it is.
Minor note, original is also O is lowercase and the large L is uppercase, which
Oh,
Just so that.
So what do you think of some variation of the wording here? Use preview as the verb and put it first, preview original, preview source, or not use the word preview at all. So original image, source image. And do any of those jump out at you as better than the others, or do you have other suggestions?
unmodified, but source works as well. Source is more techy, but source is better than original.
I kind of like source image. So are you leaning towards that, Thomas?
Yeah, I'd be perfectly accepting of source.
So and then the other one is image style or modified image.
resized image?
Resized image.
Okay, sure.
Unless you can do things different than just like if you could do a blurring filter or other things, I don't know if there's alternatives to sizing.
There are. There are all sorts of image effects you could use.
Then modified, not resized.
Oh. 1 second. I applied over here. Let's say rotate. Oh,
And I know we're talking alt text, but I would want if we're going to change to source, I'd want original that you view as well change to source. And things like the link saying view actual size, I'd say something like view actual source, things like that.
Okay, let's hold off on that. We were already considering changing those, but I want to finish with the alt text first. Another word we might use is derivative image. I'm not sure we ever use that in the user interface, though. But that is what we refer to it.
yeah, in code.
Yeah.
Oops, down here, derivative.
But if that's not ever used in the interface, then it's probably not.
It sounds like a more accurate term, though, like source and derivative are a pair that go together.
One question, what does derivative actually imply or mean? Because for me, it's an abstract term.
It means derived from
Ah,
that.
okay.
Okay.
It's a very library term. So libraries would tend to use that when talking about derivative works or things that come from a source.
Okay.
An author says in the chat that it can be a confusing word.
Yeah.
Totally agree with that.
I went to Google to like define like I think I know what it means, but what is it exactly?
So yeah, I guess I haven't said this recently, but it's really valuable in these meetings to have different points of view, and having some non-native English speakers join us is incredibly helpful. So derivative is what we use in the code, but maybe modified is easier to understand for. And actually, there are a whole lot of native English speakers who don't understand the word derivative. But I'm sort of, a wonk. I know what it means. Um,
Just one small addition. When I've thought about the alt text and my suggestion was resized, I thought I was under the impression that the technically other effects wouldn't go into that, but technically, I'm
yeah,
not
it could be
sure if
blurred, it could be rotated, it could be
yeah,
converted to a different image format. We see those options in the dropdown.
but I think it's okay to not describe the decorative image, but to provide the information that that image here has the extent of 360 by 480 and also has, for example, a blur and is rotated. That is technically information that would be useful here in comparison to the source image and the alt text there.
I think the resizing is the most common. And yeah, I've worked on sites where there are like dozens of image styles, and they're all just different sizes. Um, and you can apply multiple effects, and that information is elsewhere on the page to see what effects have been applied. So I think um, and the current page has the sizes displayed next to these thumbnails. So we're just aiming to have parity between the alt text and what you see visually.
Then one idea, having here the, for example, source image, but instead of naming every effect that is applied, maybe going, I'm not sure if there's a brief appropriate term, but instead modified is also not clear. It was confusing what is initially used here and currently, and where I went with resize. But how about to go with something like the effect applied or filtered? Filter is the wrong term in that context, but yeah, effects applied to that image or something like that. As an umbrella term for that image is a derivative of the source.
The derivative is the technical term. I think modified is acceptable, but like, do you have a specific objection to modified?
At least when I've looked at it, seeing one alt text calling it 1 second. In here, sample original, and the other sample modified, and modified was, it's just sounded not that as the perfect fit, and it felt unspecific.
We could use altered.
Altered image.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I am still a fan, and I don't think we should use derivative, but I like derivative with source because I think is this interface only open to like power users, administrators? I don't recall who modifies this. But
Generally, you
source,
wouldn't have a content editor do this. This is more the site builder or administrator
yeah.
does.
Yeah.
So source is okay in that context. But altered and modified mean exactly the same thing. I don't really see a huge upgrade to going to altered other than it sounds different.
So I think we're agreed on source image, and we don't have a strong, we don't have a consensus on the other. Oh, author suggesting adapted image. I'm not a fan of that.
I'm not a fan at all.
So let's leave it undecided for now, that derivative image, modified image, altered image. I think they're all reasonably close in meaning.
Mhm.
And then the last little point I want to think about for the alt text is whether we should have a comma between the width and height.
One sec. You mean after the wide?
Right, 800 pixels wide. Should there be a comma before 600 pixels high? Oh, come on, give me an opinion.
Mm. I would agree, but you are more knowledgeable in that regard, so
I like the comma.
You like the comma cut?
Yeah, I think it makes it very clear that they're two different things. I don't know in a screen reader if the X would come across correctly or the word by, like 480 pixels by 480 pixels, but some sort of separator is necessary between the two things.
Okay.
yeah.
So let's put in a comma.
And one thought, after you two mentioned that it's technically just for site builders and administrators and advanced users, maybe derivative might be a better choice, and it's also would be in line between the code and the terminology used there and what is used in the front end. If we go with derivative image,
I'm happy to go with derivative.
also allows us to do something, again, I need to go, it's the only reason I'm saying this, Benji, so I apologize, but I would like better to see source and then derivative 480 by 480, because it drives me crazy that it says original and then large is smaller than the original. Like that creates some massive cognitive dissonance, and you can rename it. But if the default were derivative and then someone could rename the image style name, that would make the most sense to me personally.
Yeah, technically speaking, I would remove the label large 480 by 480 here and replace it with the derivative, because the overall context is already set in the H1 as well as down here in that label for the image style name. So that context is set, and here it's just an before and after.
Yeah, so I think we are ready to move on to that, and I agree. And another reason to not use the style name there is that sometimes the style names can be very long.
Good point. Good point.
And yeah, I think you're right, it would be good to have consistency between the alt text and the label there.
Yeah.
So let's think what we want there. Thanks for joining, Thomas. So now, for the sake of the recording, Offer left a couple minutes ago, and Thomas has to leave now.
Um,
Go ahead.
I agree definitely to unify that and don't have that redundant view actual size, and make it the whole line a link maybe, and that way it's clear, as you've suggested. That way we don't need an ARIA label and have a different label for the screen reader and for the sighted user. Here I went with view actual original preview size, and that's another point to note. I'm not sure it makes sense to have a visual comparison, because in here you have identical sized preview images, thumbnails, and only the abstract numbers. But with going here, you get to the actual sizes, and that is sort of useful. But I've also noticed if you go in here, they don't have an alt text either. And it's also the question if a screen reader user necessarily needs to go there, because it has not real purpose for them.
Well, I think you may be thinking of the the fully sighted user and the completely blind user. For someone with limited visual ability, I think that having those pages might be useful. That
Yeah.
they and they might still need detailed alt text.
I agree. Okay, so talking about that one here, what, and if you look with, let's pick at first that one. For the alt text, we went with source image. So how should we rephrase that? view actual source image size.
Also, I wonder, should more of this be part of the link? Or am I just
Yeah, that was my impression about your suggestion to make the entire text the link, and that way you could save the URL label and could have one link title for cited as well as screen reader users.
yeah, but now I'm also thinking what's the expectation when you click on the image? And what does happen when you click on the image? So it is already the image is already a link to that as well. Okay. So in fact, do we need a text link in addition to the image being a link?
You're right, because technically a screen reader user gets the context of it's the source image and it's the derivative image. The only thing that is not necessarily clear is the bit of view, the actual size is missing if you would have just the image.
I'm sorry, what would be missing?
If that link is striked and you have just the title as a plain text source image, for example, and as a screen reader user, you would only get source image 600 pixels wide, 400 pixels high. But you see that it is a link if you tap to it, you know it, but you don't know where that link is actually going. That is not clear in that alt text.
So what if instead of a link labeled the actual size, you say source image, paren, click to view? Without making it a link. And so they act, instead of trying to click on the link, they know to click on the image.
The only problem, if you say source image and in parentheses click on the image or however, and you have it just as a text without being a link, then if a screen reader user taps through the interface or uses the rotor in macOS, then it is not necessary that the plain text is cached that way. You have to go through the interface stepwise with that Control Option A option and read the entire page to get that. Or you would have to make that title add a heading element.
Oh, okay, so maybe it Well, maybe it should be a label element for the
Yeah.
image, or some sort of, what is it currently?
It's
Can't read here.
one sec. Better now?
Okay. So we have that's a div, and then we have an anchor, but what is original? The word original is just inside a div. It's not inside
Yeah.
anything more specific, and maybe it should be. But also, I don't see the problem if we remove the text link, then someone who's using a screen reader and tabbing through the links will get to the image, which is also a link, and whatever alt text we put there
Yeah.
will be read. So I don't see that we're losing anything for screen readers if we just say click for full image or whatever, as text, not a link inside parentheses. I don't see that we're losing anything. So I think the only person who needs a prompt to click on the image is the sighted user.
Yeah.
And maybe instead of repeating it for the source image and derivative image, maybe we should put it next to the word preview.
How about instead of preview, call it clickable preview?
I don't love it.
Okay, no problem. It's not perfect, it was just an idea.
Yeah, and the more I think about this, the more I like the idea of reducing the visual clutter. So just source image, derivative image, make those, I don't know, labels or H3s or H4s or something. You know better than I what the appropriate HTML element would be. And then either part of either right next to preview, so that would make it part of whatever element that is.
It's a label.
Yes.
So next to it, what would be your suggestion here? In parentheses or?
Yes.
And just clickable or?
Click for actual image.
Click. Yeah. One second, let's add the rest as well. Source image.
Yes.
That is deleted.
Yep.
Oops.
Scraper
That
in.
one is also gone.
Yep.
And that call derivative image. Ah. Oh, klar.
Or maybe on the preview line, click for actual images, plural.
And one question, click upper or lowercase?
Good question. I guess it's a full sentence inside the parentheses. So maybe we should make it a capital C, plural images, and then end it with a period.
The period looks odd, to be honest.
Well, with only two of us present, we can't make any really firm recommendations. So so it's subject to change.
Yep.
Yeah, I think some style guides say that when you have a parenthetical sentence, you don't have ending punctuation for it. So
just one question in regards of the approach now that we got a bit into the weeds of it. At the moment, the issue itself, where is it? Yeah, there it is, was just about the focus outline. I thought, in air quotes, it would be easy to simply add an ARIA label to that link and add an appropriate alt text like I did. And I thought it might make sense to extend the scope slightly and add that to the patch, because I have everything locally already, so it doesn't matter. But now I think maybe I should just keep the scope tight and only make the change for that issue here by adding that, and open a follow-up issue, and we deal with the alt text and the rephrasing of the preview and so forth in a follow-up issue.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Oh, this has 2 unnecessary link tags in the issue title. What is that referring to? So is this already suggesting that we get rid of the text links?
Yeah, technically, yeah, it's basically what we came up in here as well. Because the link is sort of redundant. That's the point. Meaning that that link and that link is identical. You are able to click the image as well as you're able to click the link, and in both cases, you get to that one. I can just take another screenshot. Yeah, and that's exactly the point. One link got removed and you have just a single link left.
And I'm looking at the issue now, which I didn't before, but under proposed resolution, I think they're recommending keeping the text link and removing the link for the wrapping div, which is the opposite of what I want to do.
Yeah, that was my suggestion back then, I think. But in line with yours. Looking at that right now, the other way around is the more reasonable, in particular with the context of providing the pixel extents, which is necessary, and those are hard to access otherwise. It makes sense to, yeah, solve it that way. Oops. Ah.
Ooh, I like this so much better. Oh, okay, so let's see. If the issue already talks about the redundant links, then certainly taking the opposite decision to remove the text link and keep the one on the image is in scope.
Yes. Good point.
Changing the alt text is in scope. So so maybe all of this should be done on the current issue. I leave it up to you.
Yeah, I was just worried it might be overcomplicating things, but yeah. Due to the fact that the other way around, removing the wrapping div was already put in the proposed resolution by me, then yeah, it's in scope, and yeah, we should do it completely in that issue. I agree. So should we target that approach here?
I think so.
Okay. Then I leave a comment on the issue. I also upload the patch then with the proposed changes. And I think it might need some honing at the end, maybe a revisiting, but we'll see. We will see.
Yep.
But the direction is definitely an improvement from my perspective.
Great.
Okie
Okay.
doke.
It's a few minutes before the hour, but I think we're done.
Yep.
And see you next week, I hope.
Yep. Thank you, and have a relaxed weekend.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.